very, very warm good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. Thank you for joining us. I'm very excited to welcome Ritu today with us for this exciting Semgrep Spotlight session. Ritu is Associate Director at Fareportal, where she leads the Cyber Defense Program, and DevSecOps is a pivotal part of it. She has over 11 years of experience in vulnerability management, static and dynamic application security, web firewalls, threat and exposure management. So a big round of applause and a very warm welcome, Ritu. Thank you for joining us. So in the session today, I'll be talking with Ritu about Fareportal's journey with Semgrep over the past 1 year. We will have 10-15 minutes at the end for audience questions as well. So I encourage all the audience members, if you guys have any questions, to please put them in the Zoom chat window. Marika will be keeping an eye on the questions which are coming in, and I will make sure we get those answered in the session today. So we have dedicated time for that. So let's get started. So Ritu, I wanted to, I guess, take the audience and start the conversation back at the beginning of the relationship between Fareportal and Semgrep. So let's go back to, I think it was Jan of 2023, so almost a year and a month back or so, when Fareportal started discussions with Semgrep. At that time, you guys were in the market looking at new tooling from a SaaS perspective. And I was wondering, what were kind of the key things or the most important factors for you at that time and your team? And what were the outcomes that you were looking to deliver to some of your stakeholders as part of that? So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure, Nitin. So back in 2023, prior to Semgrep, we were using a standalone on-premises static code analyzer, which had very limited capabilities in terms of integration, automation. There was a lot of manual overhead in terms of conducting the scans and maintaining the overall solution. So there were a lot of key challenges that we were facing with respect to code coverage. We were not able to scan each and every code. There was a lot of manual scanning that was involved. There was an absence of inline real-time scans in the pipelines, because essentially it was a different isolated setup altogether. Completely separate from our CI pipelines, right? There was very limited integration and automation capabilities, and essentially the security and development teams were working in isolation. So there was a lack of common platform for both the teams to engage and collaborate. So there were some of the key requirements and key things that we had in mind when we started looking for a solution which could address all these problems. Some of our requirements were related to, having a solution which could give us off-the-shelf capabilities to integrate into our ecosystem. So we are essentially an Azure shop. So we wanted a seamless integration with Azure, so that we can give that experience to the developers, that it's just not another security tool that we are using. It is actually a tool that the developers can use for their benefit. Another thing that we are looking for was a seamless integration into our CI/CD pipelines, so that we are able to conduct automated, real-time scans of our entire code base. And most importantly, we wanted to have a tool which is developer friendly, which does not act as a blocker, and enables the developers to develop the code and reduce the vulnerabilities in the code. So all in all, we wanted to help our business to reduce the cost of vulnerability remediation at a later point in time when the application is already released into production, and also help them release secure applications and secure products quickly to the customers.
That's amazing. I think especially looking at not just the needs of the AppSec, but the bigger, broader. I think that was something that even in our initial discussions, when you and I chatted back then in Jan, I found that to be really, really interesting and a very, very different way. So I know you talked a little bit about your technology stack. So maybe let's dive a bit into that. So this is something we prepared together. Um, um, you mentioned some of these, but just at a high level, could you walk us through, the developer friendliness? What is the specific platforms that your different teams in Fareportal use, and maybe just elaborate more on that vision that you have of around, hey, security not being a blocker, right, but an enabler. So,
Right. Exactly. So over here, right, you've very beautifully defined the stakeholders, the key stakeholders that are actually involved in this entire journey, and then the key touch points that we have. So talking about the security team here, which is the key user of Semgrep platform. So for us, I think it was very important to have a platform which gives us a lot of first of all, which reduces the manual work in terms of giving us very accurate findings, reducing noise and a lot of false positives that we were getting initially with the previous solution. So that was one of the key aspect that Semgrep really helps us with. Semgrep has a lot of flexibility and gives us a lot of options to customize the platform as per our requirement, right? So that is also one of the very important and key features that we really like about Semgrep. The next is the developers, which is one of the major user base which will be using Semgrep day in and day out. So over here, the Azure platform is the environment in which the developers spend most of their time into. All our code repositories are based in Azure. So we have Azure SCM that we are using for maintaining all our code repositories. Then we have our pipelines built in Azure, and we have the Azure DevOps for maintaining our work items. So developers use this platform extensively for sprint planning, for creating work items, tasks, bugs, and everything, right? So we wanted a tool to integrate seamlessly with the Azure toolkit that we are using, so that the developers need not have to navigate between different screens, right? They are used to working on Azure, and we didn't wanted to give them yet another screen to look at vulnerabilities and all of that. So this the capability of the good part about Semgrep is that it integrates very well with Azure. So there are different points at which we have built this integration so that the developers can just work on Azure, look at the vulnerabilities right then and there, provide their comments, create bugs, work on those bugs, and track those bugs. So this is a really good feature where Semgrep really gels in well with the development platform that the developers are using. Then we wanted to have something for our leadership as well, something to showcase to our leadership so that they can have a high level understanding of the security posture of the application. So that is where we thought that Power BI dashboards would be the appropriate tool which can give us that visibility to the leadership and help them understand where we stand in terms of security of our application code base. So this is where we have made some integrations with our Power BI dashboard by ingesting the data from Semgrep into databases in real time, and these database is integrated with Power BI dashboard, very beautifully designed, which will give a very clear view of where we stand in terms of security. Team-wise scorecards are there, and it gives a very clear understanding of, okay, these are the total repos that we have, these are the vulnerabilities that we have, these are the vulnerabilities that are getting fixed, what is the fix rate, everything. So this I think this in totality becomes a very comprehensive platform altogether, which which gives that end-to-end integration and kind of brings all of these stakeholders into a common streamlined structure where they have a common visibility of how things are going, and they can track their day-to-day things and everything.
That's amazing. I mean, there's so much to unpack in that high level vision that you have there. But one thing which really struck out for me was your vision sitting in AppSec to break the silos. And even as you choose a platform, working with the stakeholders there, thinking about what their needs, what would make their teams most efficient, how could you make the platform that you bring in most. And finally, I think the focus on democratization of data, right? It's not like, hey, this is my data, I don't want to share it. Let me make it as easy. And this is one thing, our founder says, like, we would like every developer and every exec in our customers to consume Semgrep data transparently. So they don't even know it's coming from Semgrep. It's there, and the data meets them in the locations where they spend all their time. So for your developers, it was Azure DevOps. For your management, Power BI. It's really, really useful there. So that's brilliant. There's lots to unpack here. So I'm going to start maybe chipping away at a few things. One thing, I know when we looked at during the engagement and the POC, one of the things that from an AppSec perspective that you just touched about, which you really liked about Semgrep, was around the reduction in noise and reduction in false positives. Would love to double click on that and just see, what was the feedback from the developers on that? How has that helped improve your relationship with the developers, etc.? So maybe just briefly on that a little bit.
Yeah. Yes, Nitin. So there were, as I mentioned, right, Semgrep gives us a lot of flexibility and customization options within the tool itself. And it is not just for the security teams, it is also for our developers to explore and get their hands on, right? So that is the beauty of this tool, which empowers not just the security team, but also the developers to customize the rules and tweak the rules as per their requirement, right? It is not a security monopoly here. We actually want to extend this tool for our developers so that they are self-capable to use this tool for their own benefit.
Yes.
So initially, when we started with Semgrep scans, we did basic scans for all our code repos, and there were a lot of vulnerabilities that we identified. Now Semgrep, when we started with the POC, we realized that there is a very exhaustive rule sets that we have in Semgrep. So it gave us a lot of good findings which we were missing out previously. But then there were a lot of findings which we had to review and work back with the developers. So the key milestone for us was when we integrated Semgrep with Azure DevOps, and when developers started seeing those vulnerabilities in their respective area paths, right? So that is when they were a bit a bit conscious that, okay, I have so many vulnerabilities in my code, right? They didn't know about Semgrep at that time. We had send out notifications, we'd send out emails to let them know that we've introduced this new tool. But then there's this human tendency that, okay, just another tool for me to look into. So there were a lot of developers who at that point in time did not really went on to the console to see the vulnerabilities. But as soon as those vulnerabilities started flowing in into the platform that they were working day in day out, which was ADO, they started paying attention to it, and they worked back with us. So there was a very active engagement between the security and development teams that started happening as a result of this integration. And we worked back with them. We made them understand the vulnerabilities. And I remember there were a lot of sessions where which were open sessions, where we invited these developers to kind of have those discussions with your team as well, and have their doubts clarified. So thank you for that as well. And so that is when, they started understanding. And for the vulnerabilities which we thought that, okay, maybe it is adding a lot of noise, or maybe this could not be very relevant, we worked on tweaking the rules. And there were vulnerabilities where there could be a difference of understanding. So that is something that we sorted out with the developers. So eventually, with this collaboration and engagement, we got to a point where we were able to fine tune the rule sets. We were able to tune them appropriately, so that we were able to give relevant findings for the developers to focus their remediation efforts on.
That's amazing. Now, and happy to assist. That's something we do with with all our customers, and that's one of the most enjoyable parts of the job as well, is the engagement with the devs, because that's where we're making a difference. Continuing on the theme of developer engagement, I think we covered a few of these things, but from your perspective, I think the two main things that we did here, I just clarifying for the audience, is we introduced Semgrep findings directly as pull request comments into Azure DevOps. And I think the benefit that you mentioned, Ritu, there was increased developer adoption. All of a sudden, they see this, they're seeing these comments either on their pull request comments or in the Azure work items, and then they think it kind of just creates a bit more urgency than having to come into another platform and have a look at it. And also, the open collaboration does reduce the friction between developers and the security team as well. So it's really good. And just at a high level, I know you mentioned the urgency bit as well. Were there any other benefits, maybe at your level, with your peers who are kind of managing those teams, in addition to the developers and the practitioners, based on this improved developer experience, or any feedback from your peers or other management from the development team around how this was helpful for them?
Yes, definitely. As we started with the this collaboration and this engagement, we got a lot of feedback from the dev leaders that this is actually helping them identify a lot of vulnerabilities. Uh, and prior to this, now simultaneously, we are also running another scanning tool, which is integrated with our pipelines. But then again, the same challenge with that tool as well, that the developers have to go to a different console altogether, look for those vulnerabilities. So they never care to actually go to another tool to look for vulnerabilities. But here, it is actually embedded in the pipeline itself, into the phases that they have to go through while merging the code, or while creating a pull request. So it is embedded there. So for them, it obviously increases a lot of productivity, because they are able to see the issues then and there. They are able to put their comments, they are able to review it on the fly, and they are able to focus the remediation efforts, so that those vulnerabilities, the critical ones, don't seep into production. So eventually, over a period of time, we have seen a declining trend in the vulnerabilities as well. So over a period of 6 months, there has been a reduction of roughly 600 odd findings, critical findings, that we saw initially when we started with the scanning part. And that is being acknowledged by dev leaders as well. There is a lot of there were initially, we've done a lot of trainings as well for our developers to familiarize them with the platform. And every now and then, like when we have these weekly sync ups, we do invite developers. So we've got a really good feedback about the kind of engagements that we are running, where we are also involving Semgrep team to give that expert understanding, expert comments on how they can leverage the tool for their for increasing their efficiency, right? So all in all, the experience in the development teams in our organization has been really good, and the adoption rate is also increasing with time.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ritu. Before I jump into the next question, just a reminder to the audience: if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the Zoom chat, and I'll definitely get to that after in the next 10 minutes or so. Just going back to the I know we talked about the developer side in detail. I want to now maybe change gears and talk a little bit about the leadership engagement. I know you mentioned that you wanted to give visibility to leadership, to your stakeholders, others into the findings, etc. Do you want to talk a little bit about at a high level what the integration with Power BI looks like and the kind of benefits or feedback you're getting from that?
Yes, Nitin. So as you rightly mentioned, right, Power BI dashboard is something where leadership team spends their maximum time on. So there are a lot of matrices, business matrices, technical IT matrices that we are showcasing to our leadership through these Power BI dashboards. So every member in the leadership is spending most of their time on these Power BI dashboards. So that was one of the key reasons why we thought of introducing a code vulnerability dashboard in the set of leadership dashboards that are getting published to the management. So we worked back with Semgrep again to see how this integration could be done. We have our internal teams. We have data team who's working very closely with us to get this integration done. So essentially, right now what we are doing is we are consuming Semgrep APIs to export the vulnerability data into our databases. And we are using that database as a source of getting the information published onto Power BI dashboards. Now, these dashboards are getting updated almost on real-time basis, so that every day we present the most updated view of where we stand in terms of code vulnerabilities, fix rates, what are the aging vulnerabilities that the teams need to focus on. And then below that, you can see a very detailed table as well, which could, let them get into the granular details of each vulnerability. So they don't have to really go into any other tool or anything, right? They have all the necessary information right on the dashboard for them to look into. So
Exactly.
uh, correct. So that really helped us engage with our leadership and you know drive the remediation from the top.
Exactly.
uh, right, and that obviously helps ensuring that the development teams are also focusing their efforts on remediation, and ensuring that they follow all the security best practices during development, and fix the outstanding vulnerabilities that are there.
Yeah, and one of the things that when I worked with Ritu's team on this was to tie the team and the team owners into this dashboard.
Right.
So what we were doing then is Semgrep enabled to have the context of which application or which teams that vulnerabilities were impacting, which kind of put a different lens on the way people viewed it, because it was not just, hey, this is this big blog of issues we need to solve. You could now break it down across your different teams. And the other thing I really liked about this dashboard, I know it's just a screenshot here, but it's actually interactive. You can click into it and you can kind of go deeper. So it's one of those things where, as an exec, if you wanted to drill down, you are getting a lot of that kind of awareness of the current state, and giving you the
Exactly.
data there without having to come into another platform or another tool. Again,
Exactly.
they're being transparent there, but very useful. Um, Brilliant. No, that was great. I mean, I think on the technical side, I have to say, Fareportal, the way you have operationalized Semgrep into the existing tooling is world class, and I think the focus there on that technical integration, it's people, process, and technology, but I think you aced it in the technology, which has made it really easy on the people and process side as well, because it's there, it's available for the people to use it, and it's a part of the process. But gonna change a little bit gears now into, technology is one side, platform is one side, but one thing which is very important to me personally, as well as our company and our founders, is your experience as a customer, the post-sales engagement. Can you share a little bit about your experience working with myself, and I'm sure Sebas is on the call as well, or listening to the
Yeah.
webinar, but anything you want to share about that as well with us?
Definitely. And you rightly said it's about people, process, and technology. And when we were having those initial discussions, I said that DevSecOps is culture, right? And we are just looking for that right technology, that right tool, which could build and foster that culture in our organization. And that happens with people adoption, the people adopting the technology in the right way and incorporating it into their day-to-day business processes and actually bringing value to the business, right? So and really the support that we've got from Semgrep in making this entire program successful is really commendable. We had a very dedicated support. I mean, you and Sebas were always there, very approachable, and we were always interacting on the chat, on the channel that we have, and we've got all our queries, all our issues resolved. Very very quickly. There was a very quick turnaround time that we had, and we I think I remember that my team and your team used to work for hours to get something working, right? So we worked on a lot of custom integrations. We worked on a lot of sessions where you used to educate my team on how things are working, and that is very important, because our main challenge as a customer of a new technology or a new solution was to upskill the team, the security team, to be able to leverage that tool to its full potential. And that would only happen if the team has the right training and the right kind of hand holding for them to uh, work on that tool, understand how things are working, understand how there are what APIs are there, what webhooks are there, how integrations could be done, what kind of scripts can be written, right? So now I can confidently say that my team is completely equipped with all the knowledge that they need to optimally use the solution. And the same kind of empowerment we want to give to the developers as well. So I know that we've started conversations around training the developers to use this tool, write custom rules, custom code, and look at the vulnerabilities, review those vulnerabilities, how they can remediate those vulnerabilities, using the various features that we have with respect to sandboxing. I really love that feature where the developers can actually uh, try to fix that code, run the code, and see whether the vulnerability is fixed or not, uh, before making the changes in the production, right? So we want to let the developers also know that this is the tool and these are the various important functionalities that they can use to write the code efficiently and in a secure way. So I think in all of these aspects, Semgrep support team has played a pivotal role there, and there has been a lot of collaboration, a lot of active engagement that has been happening throughout. I think a period of we've spent like 10 or 11 months.
Yeah.
So there has been a constant engagement between both the teams. They are working as one.
Thank you, Ritu. I think we might be losing your audio, but I think it's fine. And I have to say, I think, when we worked with your team, it was never like a vendor customer relationship. It was always a partnership. Uh, it was always a partnership. So I really, really thank you for your support and to your team as well. Can you hear us okay? Ritu, can you hear us okay?
Nitin, I just missed your last
Okay.
sentence.
The
There was some
good
issue.
news is,
Yeah.
yeah, you're back. So I was just saying, no, I just wanted to say that, over the last 10 months, ever since you guys became customers, I think it's never felt like a vendor and customer relationship. It's always been like a partnership, and the effort and the engagement for your team has been brilliant as well. So, we thank you for that as well, and thank you for your kind words. Just I think this last question, and then we'll go into the audience side, but looking into the future, the next 12 months, what are the kind of the plans for yourself from an AppSec perspective program at Fareportal? What are kind of the top, things you guys are looking at, and and what are your plans with Semgrep as well? So we could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, as we are progressing towards that maturity path, we have set up certain milestones for ourselves for this entire year. One of them is to set up security gates. Now that we've had a lot of engagement with the developers, we've made them familiarized with the platform, and they've also started working on the vulnerability remediation. We are planning to implement security gates in the pipelines, which will help us uh, ensure that any high or critical code vulnerability is not released into the production along with the code. So we are we are working very closely with the development teams to clear the backlog and ensure that there are zero high or critical vulnerabilities in the code before we go ahead and implement the security gates in the pipeline. So that is one of the major milestones that we want to achieve this year. Then there are a lot of other functionalities that we are looking in the tool. One of them is the software composition analysis, and I've seen that Semgrep has grown quite a lot. In just 10 months, there is a lot of active development that is happening. A lot of new features are introduced, which is really helping us in making our code secure. And one of the most important feature which we were actually looking to introduce in the coming year was SCA. So we've already started evaluating SCA for Semgrep. And I think the one best feature that I like about SCA till now is the reachability analysis, which actually helps us pinpoint the exact vulnerable function in the library, which is used in the code. That was a major pain point that we were facing. We had evaluated HCA tools earlier as well, and there was no other tool which was giving us that level of granularity or visibility as to where exactly the problem lies. So that is something that we are really liking as we have started the evaluation of SCA. Then we also are working on how we can leverage the custom rules. We've already started discussions around that, where we are seeing how we can leverage custom rules to address specific business requirements or enable the application teams to write their own custom code for their specific requirements to address any zero-day vulnerability that we come across, and we don't have a readily available rule out there to identify those vulnerabilities in the code. And then, of course, any new vulnerability that is identified in, let's say, by a bug hunter or a security researcher, right? So we just know that one vulnerable instance that has been reported, but custom rules would actually help us identify the vulnerabilities across our code base and ensure that we are applying the fix consistently across the code base.
That's brilliant.
So those are some of the key things that we wanted to really explore. We've started evaluation, and maybe over a period of time we are going to implement those solutions to ensure that we finally reach to a very mature state where we are addressing vulnerabilities at each and every point within the development lifecycle.
That's brilliant. No, thank you, Ritu. I'm just going to pause there and see if there's any questions from the audience. I know there were a couple of questions that I saw, but I think we've covered those already in the conversation. I think there's a question regarding developing your custom rules. I think you talked about it. There's another one around supply chain as well, which we've covered. Any other questions from the audience before we wrap up? If not, can you tell us a little bit about the programming languages or your technical or your tech stack? What's kind of the main development environments or the programming languages that Fareportal uses?
Yeah. So primarily all our applications are based out of .NET. So there are 2-3 different versions of .NET frameworks that we are using. Mostly all our applications based on React and Node.js, NuGet. So those are like very short, I would say, application services or programs that have been written, but primarily it is .NET that we are using. So Semgrep supports .NET really well. We have we are effectively scanning our code base for vulnerabilities, and it is able to detect all those vulnerabilities. Initially, I think Semgrep was not supporting SCA for .NET, but introduced that as well, and that is also working perfectly for our .NET applications.
Brilliant. Very, very big thank you, Ritu, for such an amazing session. I think there's lots of technical detail. There's lots of information there, which I'm sure the audience found very insightful, and lots of actionable guidance that they can take back, both from the technical side, but also from the stakeholder management, everything. So big thank you to you, and big thank you to our audience for joining us today as well. And we look forward to seeing you in our next session. So